Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tiffany Benson, one part of Team Benson, and we are going to talk about some garden things today. So one, I'm going to tell you what nobody ever told me about no-dig gardening. Two, we're going to figure out what's going on with some of my plants. And three, we're going to talk about why your Arizona garden or your desert garden might look different from a lot of other gardens on YouTube. So, we got a lot to talk about. Okay guys, so first up is a lot of your gardens might look different from a lot of other gardens that you might see on YouTube. And you might be wondering, okay, why is my garden not doing as amazing as everybody else's? And it's because we as desert gardeners are almost a good season, because there were a couple months ahead of everybody else. So where you might see a lot of other people posting a lot of harvests and a lot of things that are coming in, we have been getting that for a while. And I think that that's something, piece of hair guys, I think that that's something that when I first started gardening and I watched a lot of YouTube videos, it was very discouraging to me because I was trying to keep up with what everybody else was doing. But in reality, when I started realizing when I plant things, how my seasons change and how they're different from everybody else's that you see and the majority of a lot of YouTubers that you'll see, then I realized that, oh, well, I should be getting a lot of my harvest at this time versus everybody else that's getting it maybe a week or 2 weeks or maybe a month later. And even for those of you guys that are watching my channel and you are maybe a northern gardener or somebody that has a different climate than me, then your harvest is going to be a lot different. So one of the things that I like doing is I like to plan out my garden and then also record things so that I know, okay, this is the season for planting, this is the season for getting crops, this is the season for pest, and this is when I let my soil rest, and this is when I do this is when I do that. So we're going to walk around and we're going to talk about it because we got a lot going on. We have different stages of things going on in my garden. So it's a fun time in triple digits. Okay, so first let's talk about pest. Look at these big giant tomato hornworms. Well, actually I won't say they're tomato hornworms because these are pepper plants that they're on. Now my pepper plants, these ones are my poblano peppers. And I have another one here, and then I also have hornworms on my tomato plant. I think that there's one on this one too. Yep, it's right there. So my pepper plants can go for several seasons for me. And one of the things that I do to keep my pepper plants, and this goes for my poblanos, it goes for my shishitos, it also goes for my jalapenos, is that I prune back the pepper plants. And normally when I start seeing pests come in and starting to eat the leaves, that's a sign for me that the plant needs to be pruned back. So I prune it back, and then by the fall, it'll grow all the way back and give me more fruit. Now, when you have a plant that is a fruiting plant that can last for several seasons, like a pepper plant, then you have to realize that the plant is going to naturally prune itself. So either you're going to do it or the plant's going to do it. So if the plant's doing it, it's going to invite in a lot of different pests to then come in and prune it back. My pepper plants can last all year long. Usually I only lose a pepper plant if there's a horrible hailstorm like it was in October, or usually that's about it. But I can keep pepper plants for years to 2 years and possibly even longer if I just treat them right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prune back that pepper plant. Now I've seen a lot of YouTubers that are like northern gardeners, they prune back their pepper plants when it's winter time. And they prune back the plant grows back, and then it grows more peppers. For me, I do it when it's summertime and it's getting ready to get super, super hot. We're getting ready to hit our hottest months where it's going to be 115 this weekend. And then we have to hit August, which is going to be in the 120s. We're praying that it does not go all the way to the 120s, but it probably will. So that's when I'm going to prune back my pepper plant, because my pepper plant isn't going to really flower at that time. So it's not going to be producing fruit. So I'm going to let the plant get stronger, let the roots kind of give a break and get the whole thing stronger, so that then in the fall, towards the end of the fall, I will have more peppers, and then also in the spring, I'll have another round of peppers. So let's do that. Okay, so these are my poblano pepper plants now. And we have a bucket full of tomato hornworms. Now, I know this might seem completely drastic, but you can prune a pepper plant all the way down to pretty much like this stub, and it will grow back. It's one of those plants that's pretty durable, but when it gets sick or when it's time for it to kind of die back, it will definitely get a fungus, or it'll get hornworms, or it'll get something in order to prune it back. So if you prune it back yourself, it kind of keeps all of the disease and the pests down from the plant, because now the plant is just focused on growing itself back and getting itself prepared for the next season that it can fruit. So prune your pepper plants. So I'm actually all about things being able to kind of complete their life cycles. So I'm actually going to take that bucket of hornworms, and they have enough leaves, so I'm going to stick it outside of my garden and just let them continue to eat the leaves that are in there, because why not? I think they make like a butterfly or a moth or something, and we probably are going to need those. So we're going to look at a couple things that I have going as new starts. Like I said, my garden is in a lot of different phases right now. There's new things, there's old things, and there's things that are kind of in between. So I have a bed of black-eyed peas, guys. I'm very excited about it. Very, very excited about it. So look at that. A whole bed of little black-eyed peas. So guys, this is an example of when you're planting something in the season that it's supposed to be in, it actually stays pretty healthy. So as you can see, these are now starting to get their true leaves, and the plants are very strong, they're very green, and they're just all around very healthy. You can move them and you're not seeing any like white flies or anything like that, because this is the season that they're supposed to be planted in. So what happens if you plant something in the season that's supposed to be planted in, and then it gets instantly destroyed because you put it next to a dying tomato plant where there's pest? Well, you can easily just start them inside and then just plant them outside to catch up if you need to get rid of that dying plant like I needed to, or if you needed to give a little bit of time between the pest population to die out in between you taking out those plants. So what I did is I started my long beans inside the house. Now, I don't want these long beans to stand here too long, because as you can see, they have tap roots that are completely starting to grow out. I started extra ones because I was like, I'm gonna have Chinese red long noodle beans if it's the last thing that I do. And my squash didn't come up on my trellis, so I have room for these extra ones. But I'm gonna show you guys the ones that I planted a couple days ago, and you can see how they're doing. Now these ones don't even have the true leaves yet, because I don't want to have giant tap roots that I end up breaking off. So I'm actually putting these out as soon as they sprout. So these are the ones that I put out a couple days ago. So as you guys remember, there was a tomato plant here that was completely dead and died back, and it actually brought in some pests that then ate the tops off of my long beans. So I planted these inside, grew them inside, and now planted them outside before they even got their true leaves. But as you can see, these ones are already starting to get their true leaves, and they're healthy. They're completely green, they're nice and straight, no white flies on them or anything like that. Okay guys, so I'm gonna plant those new beans right here, but I want to show you, like just with going a little bit underneath the soil, look at all of the worms I'm getting. There are a ton of just little worms in here that are trying to hide back out. So I want to be careful when I'm digging around, but see, that one right there, I don't want to kill it, so try and be really careful so that you're not killing your worms. So having worms in my garden is a huge thing for me. because when I first started gardening, didn't have any worms. And this is what no one tells you about a no-dig garden. One, it doesn't work if you don't have worms, because then it just becomes like a rock hard soil because the roots are not getting decomposed. So it's just basically the roots and then the soil, and then it just becomes like rock hard. So you need worms in order for that to work. Also, what nobody ever told me was that it is just adding a layer of compost. Now, when you have other things in your soil, like a lot of times Arizona gardeners add like peat moss or cocoa coir, different things like that that hold water, that also can create another brick layer that if you're just adding compost, you're not, those roots are not at the bottom of that compost. They're still kind of at the top. So you're adding just a little bit of compost. Now, when I add compost to my garden, I add a thick layer of compost because my soil levels go all the way down. Well, when my soil levels are really far down, that far, the roots are really far down too as well. So then all those decomposing insects are down at the bottom. When those decomposing insects are at the top, it's typically because I just either cut something and I need to let that soil kind of rest and kind of decompose down, so then I can add my compost onto it. Or if I am having stuff that I'm decomposing in the soil, so I added like bananas, or I've added like eggshells or something like that to it. Where the spot we were just at, that is a spot that's right next to my compost bin, so it gets a lot of worm action. But what I really look for are like the pill bugs and those like little earwax things, those little gross looking bugs, because if those are in there, then that means that there's something that they're trying to decompose. So you want to get those, you want to let that soil level kind of drop, and then add your next level of compost, and then add whatever it is you're going to plant. Now, the next thing I want to point out is that when you have a dead plant, take it out. Don't wait, take it out. Because right now we're in the summertime, where in Arizona there's a lot of insects. Our insect pressure is a little bit higher. And then also we're planting seasons back to back. So in my garden, things are kind of spaced out to where some things are still going, some things are brand new, and some things need to come out. But when those things need to come out, take them out, because otherwise this will happen. Okay, so I saw that this cucumber plant was dying back, and I saw it was dying back because of the spider mites. And I mean, this plant has been in here since probably around like February or March, so it's been in here for a while. But I let it die completely back, partly to show you guys this example, but also being lazy. And what happened is that all the spider mites jumped off of this plant and went right over back to my okras. So now I see webbing, I see all of those little things that I do not want to see on my okra plants, because they are trying to create me more okra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to instantly take out this plant. I know my okra is supposed to be here because it is still flowering and fruiting, so I'm going to treat the leaves that are affected and make sure I get this dead plant out of here today. So I hope those little tips help you out when it comes to you planting your desert garden. I still have a couple things that are pretty good, like my okra is still good, my Armenian cucumber is still good, but the squash are starting to get there, so I'm going to start some squash indoors, so that then in a couple of weeks I'm going to rip out these squash, and I'm letting them finish up their last things that they have on there. Then I'm going to rip those up and then add some compost, because those soil levels are all the way down, which is where I want them to be when I add my new compost on, because then that means the worms and the pill bugs and all those different things are going to be at the bottom doing their job in their perfectly no-tilled way while I can grow things at a layer that's at the top. So I hope that helps you guys. Don't feel frustrated if you're a desert gardener and you're watching everybody pull off all of these tomatoes and everything. It's probably 100 and something degrees where you're at and nothing wants to fruit. But that's okay, because there are things that grow well here in the desert. We have monsoon gardens coming up, so make sure you're planting your cowpeas, your lung beans, and get your okras. If you don't have those already going, get those started. You can start putting your squashes inside. My squash did not come up. Well, My acorn squash didn't come up, which is my winter squash, and then also my pumpkin didn't come up. So I'm gonna start those inside, and then I'm also gonna start my summer squash. We're gonna get another round of those. I'm gonna wait a week and start those inside so that then I can bring them out and let them do their jobs, because I want things going in my garden back to back. So until next time, don't get too stressed out, my desert gardeners. This is supposed to happen. But until next time, grow a garden, because even a small space can provide you with tons of food. Bye guys.